50 years ago, when freedom was in peril, this field ran with the blood of those who fought to save the world.
Overseas today, the President says thank you to those Americans who contributed to the liberation of Europe. 50 years ago today, the U.S. Fifth Army has overrun the hills south of Rome. They're about to capture the city. German and Italian resistance is collapsing.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, reporting tonight from Normandy.
Good evening from Normandy, D-Day -3. This is the scene of the Great Battle. In German bunkers like this, along what they called the Atlantic Wall, German troops were about to experience the first shock of the Allied invasion. Historians tell us that soldiers here had no idea that this would be one of history's great battlefields, but having heard what was happening to Germany on the Russian front and in Italy, not many German soldiers here watching the English Channel any longer believed in absolute victory. President Clinton is in Italy today, paying tribute. Here's ABC's Britt Hume.
President Clinton walked among the nearly 8,000 graves of Americans who died in the bitter struggle to free Italy in 1944. It has been called the Forgotten Campaign, overshadowed by the massive Normandy invasion. But the Italian offensive was crucial to the Allied victory. Rome was the first European capital to be liberated 50 years ago tomorrow. But it was also costly. 30,000 Allied killed and wounded in combat, 37,000 more stricken by disease and battle fatigue in the long winter of 1944. Among those wounded in Italy was a young lieutenant from Hawaii named Daniel Inouye, who lost his right arm storming a heavily fortified hill. Another was a platoon leader from Kansas named Bob Dole, who was nearly killed in combat, his right arm shattered. Both are now U.S. senators, and the president spent some time with them in the cemetery today. Part of his challenge was to find words to match their deeds and those of so many others here who had seen some of the war's most savage and protracted combat.
We are the sons and daughters of the world they saved. Now our moment for common cause has come. It is up to us to ensure a world of peace and prosperity for yet another generation.
Some veterans may have doubts about this president who never served and avoided the Vietnam War draft, but those here today were grateful that he was here too.
Thank you for your service.
The veterans that fought here and fought so hard here, we appreciate the people that remember what we did too, because a lot of good people died in this area.
If you weren't there, you'll never understand it. And we can't expect you to, but we'd like to have you remember it.
Bill Clinton, not yet born in 1944, cannot, of course, remember the Italian campaign, but he seems certain to remember today. Britt Hume, ABC News, Rome.
President Clinton was also busy today with the crisis of the day, how to get the North Koreans to come clean about their nuclear program. Yesterday, the president called for global economic sanctions as a way to put pressure on the North Koreans, but the administration does not seem to be in a hurry. Here's ABC's Bob Zelnick.
From Italy today, Mr. Clinton telephoned Presidents Yeltsin of Russia and Kim Jong-sam of South Korea seeking support for UN sanctions against North Korea. At the UN, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency said the North had made it impossible to determine how much plutonium had been diverted for possible weapons use. And in Washington, administration negotiator Robert Gallucci began a round of meetings with officials from South Korea, Japan, and other allies.
We have clearly and consistently told North Korea that the nuclear issue cannot be resolved without eventually accounting for North Korea's past plutonium production.
But administration sources say the U.S. will initially seek only modest sanctions against North Korea. For example, while a ban on weapons traffic will be sought, no effort will be made to block the transport of oil and coal to North Korea. Sources say this measured approach may keep key Security Council members China and Russia from vetoing a sanctions resolution. It may also moderate North Korea's response. The North has repeatedly threatened to respond to sanctions by withdrawing from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty.
The danger is that all of their program will cease to be under international monitoring if we impose sanctions.
With that in mind, the U.S. effort at sanctions seems designed more to establish credibility than to bludgeon North Korea into submission. Bob Zelnick, ABC News at the State Department.
We'll have a lot more about D-Day later in the broadcast, but first we're going to go back to New York, where Catherine Crier has the day's other news. Catherine?
Thanks, Peter. In a moment, the May jobless figures, they're down sharply. Also, Virginia Republicans are about to choose a candidate for the U.S. Senate. It could be Oliver North. And Peter Jennings will be back from Normandy with an agonizing decision for General Eisenhower 50 years ago.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Pontiac and your local Pontiac dealer.
Let's ride! Load it up and have a ball. New Pontiac Transport's got it all.
The roominess and convenience of flexible seating, the safety of standard anti-lock brakes and airbags. Count 'em, 2 built-in child seats, and a great new look.
New Pontiac Transport, it's got it all.
When it comes to tough hand tools, we're making a name for ourselves because they're made with a full lifetime warranty. That's ACE, the name to know for hand tools.
Bet you're glad you entered, David.
Yeah, if I hadn't entered, someone else would have my prize.
You hear that? You wouldn't want someone else to take your prize, right?
So be sure to get your entry back before Ed reveals the $10 million winning number.
From Washington today, word of a significant drop in unemployment last month. The jobless rate in May was down 0.4% to 6% even. But only 120,000 new jobs were created, which means overall jobs were being created at a much slower rate than that last month than earlier. Another sign the economy may be slowing down. Wall Street took the unemployment numbers in stride. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 13 points, closing at 3772. The trading was moderate. For the week, the industrial average gained 15 points. In Richmond, Virginia today, thousands of delegates gathered for the start of a 2-day Republican Party convention. They're going to choose a candidate to run for the U.S. Senate, and it may well be Oliver North, a central figure in the Iran-Contra scandal, a man convicted of lying to Congress who now wants to be a part of it. Here's ABC's Mike Von Fremd.
The former Marine was up early surveying the political battlefield before the fight begins on the convention floor. North has recruited legions of ultra-conservatives and members of the religious right who are delighted with his promise to shake up Washington and fight for family values.
My friends, I have a reputation for keeping my commitments no matter how much trouble I get in.
Y'all just watch. Y'all just watch.
His opponent, former Reagan budget director Jim Miller, is running on a nearly identical conservative platform. Miller claims that North's controversial past means the retired colonel cannot get elected.
If the nomination goes to Mr. North, it's no certain thing. I just say it that way. And it's going to split the party. It's going to just split the party. That's it.
Republican Senator John Warner has already said he may leave the party if North is the nominee. And Republican Marshall Coleman and former Democratic Governor Doug Wilder say they may both run as independents if North is the candidate. That may work to North's advantage.
If this electorate is divided and sliced up into 4 ways, that core of loyal supporters that North have may put him in the U.S. Senate.
Tomorrow, the 14,000 delegates cast secret ballots. To constantly influence them, North has bought 8 hours of radio time. The operation's code name, Radio Free Ollie. Just one problem, it turns out AM radio waves cannot penetrate the Coliseum. Mike Von Fremd, ABC News, Richmond.
Well, politics got very nasty today in the nation of Taiwan. The 4th brawl this week in Taiwan's parliament. This time, women only. It started when one female member insulted another. There have been so many fistfights here, members are now being billed for the damage they do. In the People's Republic of China, the anniversary of a far more serious case of political violence. This evening, 5 years ago, the Chinese army moved into Tiananmen Square in Beijing and crushed the pro-democracy demonstrations. Today, no public commemorations. Chinese police made sure of that. And in a moment, Peter Jennings will be reporting from Normandy and the memories of soldiers who were there 50 years ago.
To introduce the new vegetable bag from Ziploc, here's Green Thumb.
Only Ziploc is made to keep vegetables fresher longer instead of turning soggy or dry. Because only Ziploc brand vegetable bags are designed with freshness vents. Amazing little holes that let the right amount of moisture out so tender veggies stay fresher longer. New Ziploc vegetable bags work so well, I give them a big thumbs up.
Ziploc has the lock on freshness.
For vegetables.
With the Toyota Touch Lease, there's never been a better time to lease a Toyota, and never a better time to lease a Toyota Camry LE for only $249 a month. Camry LE comes loaded with automatic transmission, air conditioning, dual airbags, power windows and door locks, deluxe stereo cassette, and more for only $249 a month. The Toyota Camry LE and the Toyota Touch Lease. In today's economy, it's perfect timing.
In the Caribbean, everyone goes to the popular island, but only Princess gives you more. A private island where no one else goes on every Caribbean cruise, where you have the wonders of the Caribbean all to yourself. If you'd like more from your cruise, sail with Princess. After all, it's more than a cruise. It's the love boat.
There's more to news than just a 6 and 10 newscast. There's assignment, shooting, writing, editing, setup, research, mapping, designing, store, graphics, timing, and communication. That's why here at KTEN News 10 Now, we've assembled a team dedicated to putting together the most reliable, up-to-the-minute newscast in southern Oklahoma and North Texas. KTEN brings you the news. KTEN News 10 Now for you.
Getting here to this part of the Normandy coast today was a pretty lengthy experience because so many people want to be here for the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of D-Day. Many of them have come and seen things which are familiar, and they've heard some things which are familiar, too. That's what happens every few minutes. Those are C-130s here to take part in a commemorative parachute drop on Sunday. On D-Day, the paratroopers were the first to land on French soil behind the German front lines, hours before the troops hit the beaches. Normandy is bursting at the seams with those veterans today. Some of them at this ceremony on Omaha Beach, honoring the men of the 29th Infantry Division. Some collected sand to take home. Many of these men, then they were boys, were the first to land on Omaha Beach 50 years ago. Their units suffered terrible casualties. It was, said one vet today, like walking into a firing squad. For so many young men from so many places, it was such a bewildering experience. Such a mixture of heroism and desperation. Here's ABC's Aaron Brown.
For the thousands of seasick young soldiers crossing the English Channel that night, D-Day was not about clever tactics and well-planned diversions. It was about courage, camaraderie, and maybe being killed. John Thompson remembers a conversation with an officer in a landing craft.
He said, listen, no gimmicks, no cuteness. We're not being cute at all. We're coming straight in with everything we have. Right in, straight at them. No other way. We're coming in. And the first 6 hours will tell the difference.
Thompson wrote about it for the Chicago Tribune.
The sea was full of wrecked ships, wrecked boats. And here with all these bodies on the beach, all the firing going on, and a German officer could look down there and say, well, we stopped the bastards right at the water's edge.
They very nearly stopped 20-year-old Ed Kostowski.
I tripped, and it was a very fortunate thing because the machine gun bullets were landing right in front of my nose and throwing sand into my eyes. If I'd have taken another couple of steps forward, I may never have made it.
Kostowski was an Army Ranger. He would lose many friends that day when the Rangers climbed the cliffs to take out the German artillery bunkers at Point du Hoc.
We were declared expendable. We didn't take the fortifications, knock them out and everything. There wouldn't be any D-Day at all.
The Rangers did succeed. The German Atlantic Wall began crumbling, but only after inflicting extraordinary losses on the beach below.
There was a stench, really.
There were bodies without arms, legs, cut in half. I don't even want to say what they looked like. It's terrible.
Carrying a Polish Bible given him by his father and a good luck dollar bill, a gift from his girl Wanda, Walter Smolka learned about death and luck at the same time. He was on the left side of the landing boat when the German shell hit.
It came down the right side and right from the top. Some of our fellows like Richards, Van Zandt, Franco, they were killed immediately.
Smolka made it in and began clearing German mines. George Knapp made it in and began dealing with the dead and dying.
If they died right there in front of us, why, we gave them the final blessing and committed them into God's care.
Knapp was a 27-year-old chaplain, husband, father of one, another on the way. He had dealt with death before, of course, but never death like this.
We were shocked to the point of being numb for a while. If he hadn't been numb, I don't think we could have taken it. You know, it was just so terrible that we almost didn't feel anything for a while.
50 years later, they can't forget. John Thompson still writes on that old typewriter sometimes. George Knapp still keeps the letters he wrote his wife. And Walter Smolka still has the good luck dollar that Wanda gave him. It was a dreadful day, D-Day was, and still it is strangely cherished.
I wouldn't take $1 million for my experiences, and I wouldn't take another $1 million to go through them again.
I think in the last number of years that lives with me more now than ever about those that we left behind.
Those left behind were also men who wrote their wives and charged up hills and carried good luck charms. Aaron Brown, ABC News.
In all of the black and white footage from World War II that we have been looking at this week, the black American soldier is rarely seen. As one historian put it, racism was at the heart of the Nazi philosophy. But in 1944, racism was also present in the American Army. The Army was still officially segregated. 3 months before D-Day, there were 150,000 black American servicemen in Britain, but most of them were either unloading ships or driving trucks. There were no black combat troops in the initial onslaught against the Germans here in France, though the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion, essential in keeping enemy aircraft away from the invasion force, was widely admired for its skill and daring. Waverly Woodson was one of the unit's medics. Woodson, who was from Philadelphia, was later cited for his heroism in his hometown newspaper.
There is no hero. It's just that you're there and you do what you can.
And increasingly, in the last 11 months of the war, black and white Americans began to fight together. One experimental unit was so successful that an integrated fighting force became a reality.
There shall be equality of treatment and opportunities for all persons in the armed services.
And in 1948, President Truman finally issued an executive order which made official segregation in the services a thing of the past.
You're still worried about denture odor? Come on, honey. Minty Double Action Polident controls denture odor and cleans tough stains. So try Double Action Polident. And when you're away from home, try the denture cleanser to go. New Polident White.
Rescue me. I'm burning hot. Rescue me. My air is really shot. Can't you see I'm on fire?
Get help in a hurry. Call a Bryant dealer to the rescue. Bryant's Quiet 2-Speed Plus air conditioner has a lower speed to help lower your energy bill. And only your Bryant dealer has it. So call Bryant to the rescue.
Come on, Bryant, and rescue me. Rescue me.
My hemorrhoids hurt so much, I was afraid I needed surgery. But my doctor said they weren't serious, and it's time I used Preparation H.
Preparation H helps relieve the symptoms of inflamed hemorrhoidal tissues, often bringing relief from itching, burning, and painful irritation for hours. Doctor recommended Preparation H.
Once in a while, a breakthrough comes along, like a flat latex wall paint that holds up against stains. New Everclean, only from Sherwin-Williams. We'll take tough stains like grease, red wine, tea, grape juice, coffee, mustard, and let them set overnight. Everclean is the flat latex wall paint with a finish so smooth stains don't stick. Stains don't stand a chance with new Everclean.
He packs heavy. She packs light. She wears silk. He wears wool. He's comfortable at 68 degrees. She prefers 72. Good thing they own a Buick Park Avenue with available dual-zone climate control. 72 for her, 68 for him. Too bad everything isn't as accommodating as Park Avenue. From Buick, the new symbol for quality in America.
Well, as you can see, it's blowing here in Normandy tonight, and there is going to be a storm, just like it was 50 years ago. On the eve of D-Day, on both sides of the English Channel, the weather was a preoccupation. Here's ABC's Sheila McVicker.
Here on the English side of the English Channel, there was one thing the planners could not control, the weather, and it was not with them.
The rain was coming in horizontal streaks. The wind was 50 miles an hour. The cloud cover was down to about 2 feet above the ground in England.
Weather that meant Allied planes might not be able to fly essential bombing runs and drop the paratroopers. Rough seas that could capsize landing craft and drown the troops, helpless with their 100-pound backpacks.
With precisely.
Sir Tom Normanton, a British major at Allied headquarters, saw Eisenhower every day.
He bore the strain of the certain knowledge that if things went wrong, he'd have to go home, leaving 100,000 American soldiers dead.
50 years on, this road is all that remains of General Eisenhower's camp. In the days before D-Day, using these trees as cover from prowling German bombers, Eisenhower lived in a tent in these woods. It was here that he prayed for the invasion to succeed and hoped that the weather would clear.
But 50 years ago, it was still raining. The invasion had been postponed once. Another delay could cost the Allies weeks. On June 5th, a dispirited Eisenhower went to his headquarters, but his forecasters told him the storm would ease for just a few hours, and so the decision was made. He wrote a note to be read if the invasion failed. If any blame or fault attaches to the attempt, it is mine alone. All along this coast, men were scared. Some deserted. Some tried to make themselves sick. But most bore their fear with grim determination.
We knew where we were going, and we were very apprehensive. We wondered how many of us would actually come back.
So many, American, British, Canadian, would not. And Eisenhower knew. As American paratroopers prepared to depart for France, he walked among them, cheering them on, and he watched them go.
When the last one took off, he turned away. The 4 stars on his shoulders suddenly became a ton of weight, and the shoulders just drooped, and tears were streaming down his eyes.
American and British paratroopers would be the first to fight in France. 7 out of 10 would be dead before dawn. Sheila McVicker, ABC News, on the south coast of England.
We'll be back with a final note about the Atlantic Wall in just a moment.
When my Raymond gets constipated, I give him Phillips milk of magnesia. Phillips is the only one that soothes that stomach acidity feeling Ray sometimes gets.
Maureen, put that away. Only Phillips soothes your upset stomach, then relieves constipation overnight.
I think we should throw a party.
I know what you'd serve.
Lysol spray use number 43, the only rest stop for miles. Lysol disinfectant spray. There's nothing this can't do.
When it comes to paint, we're making a name for ourselves because we make our own and guarantee its quality. That's ACE, the name to know for paint.
This helps diagnose arthritis. To effectively relieve the minor pain of arthritis, use this, Advil. Advil works directly at the site of pain. It's fast and gentler to your stomach than aspirin. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
Ask these expert gardeners. They'll tell you how they grow bigger and better flowers and vegetables.
With Miracle-Gro, I grow impatiens 4 feet high.
The difference between an ordinary garden and a great garden is Miracle-Gro.
It's color, 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 all season long. Miracle-Gro will make everything grow but your hair.
You'll never know what a great gardener you can be until you use Miracle-Gro. Now the Miracle-Gro No Clog 2. It's 3 feeders in 1. It's a gentle feeder, a wand feeder, a fast feeder for lawns and shrubs.
Finally this evening, the Atlantic Wall, of which this bunker is part. In the fall of 1942, Adolf Hitler had ordered that the German defenses along the French coast be such that any Allied invasion be stopped right here. It requires a real stretch of the imagination to contemplate this lovely beach today and see it the way it was. Hitler wanted 15,000 fortified positions manned by 300,000 men. Construction, he said, was to proceed with frantic energy. Much of the wall was designed by Hitler himself, though he never once came to visit, and it never became anything like the impregnable fortress he mistakenly believed it to be. Not long before D-Day, Hitler ordered his tactical commander in the West, Field Marshal Rommel, to get the wall finished in a hurry. Rommel was alarmed. There was not enough concrete, not enough guns. So look at this lovely expanse of beach today and imagine beneath the sand and in the shallow waters 5 million mines. Rommel thought he needed 50 million. Hitler's wall was never finished. Ernst Dick was a junior German officer on this beach in 1944. The German High Command thought the invasion would be elsewhere.
Hier hat man das, glaube ich, gar nicht so ernst.
Here, they never thought it really serious, he said. The commanders never thought it would happen here. Maybe the wall wasn't finished, but Charlie Brown from Iowa and Albert Genest from Massachusetts remember the hell of it anyway.
The Germans were sitting up there on the hill. They had every inch of the beach covered with machine guns and heavy big guns, you see.
And they remember the mines.
I remember when we came in that the beaches were all lined with steel X's. The Germans had placed them in and fastened them together with barbed wire and mines to try to keep us from making the landings.
The trouble was that on Omaha Beach, the naval guns and the Air Force bombers had not destroyed the German fortifications.
They were dying by the thousands.
Men being hit and screaming with pain.
There will never be another day like it. The day they came across the channel and reached the Atlantic Wall. And that is our report on World News Tonight. The official commemoration of D-Day begins over the weekend, and we'll cover most of it. On Monday morning, we'll be on the air live from 7 a.m. Eastern Time. I hope you'll join us. Incidentally, to answer a question we've been asked several times, there is no official explanation for the D in D-Day. To most people, it is simply D for day, as H is for H-hour. Others do like to think it is D for deliverance, as in deliverance from Hitler. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night from Normandy.